Alberto, aquí, ¿no? ¿Con? Ok, y estos son 3 minutos. Ongi e Torri, bienvenidos. Welcome to Bind 4.0, the 4th edition of Demo Day. And welcome to 2020. Not just another year in the office, that's for sure. I'm Jack Vincent, and I'm delighted to be back again this year as your main stage host. And not quite the stage that anyone imagined either, not even 6 months ago. Coming into 2020, everyone at Basque Industry 4.0 was working hard to make this 4th edition even better than last year's edition at the Euskalduna Conference Center. As the team was diligently working away on this year's program, a new initiative here, a few tweaks there, wham! Corona. What a tsunami. COVID-19. COVID-19 has impacted everyone. Some, sadly, with great loss. All of us, unexpectedly, with great change. Change that's impacted how we live and how we work. Zoom is the new meeting room. The kitchen is the new corporate cafeteria. And pajamas are the new business suit. Okay, gym clothes. Do you know what I noticed this spring? At the depth of our fear, at the height of our hope, that we aren't social distancing, we're physical distancing. Socially, we're embracing. Think about it. Online, we're as close as ever. And that's one of our objectives today, to be inclusive, to be virtually including everyone, startups, corporates, institutions, and you, even if you're in your pajamas. Do you know who has demonstrated serious innovation? The entire team at Bind 4.0. When this pandemic hit, the Bind team stepped up big time. They've made this year's demo day not only acceptable, but exceptional. I personally want to thank Bind and the Basque government for their innovative work for making this year's demo day an exciting virtual demo day. While we don't have a captive audience this year, we do have an event that's larger than ever. Some 750 people have signed in for today's virtual demo day. But this year's event is going to be available online for the next year, making it available to thousands, literally to an infinite number of viewers. So here's what we have for you in this 4th edition of Demo Day. Over the next hour and 10 minutes, we'll have a keynote by Martin Varsovsky. Okay. I've just learned he's not connecting, so we'll see. Following that,
I am connected.
Yay.
I am connected.
Following
Here.
that, we'll have a roundtable with 3 corporate partners, Coca-Cola, Mercedes-Benz, and Unilever, as well as the experience of the Basque government and of a Bind 4.0 alumni startup. We really do want to hear from you. You can send us questions in English or Spanish, and time permitting, I'll pose them to the panel. Following the roundtable, we'll introduce you to the virtual expo area for this year's startups. Then, Arantxa Tapia, Minister of Economic Development and Infrastructure in the Basque government, will provide you with the news and outlook for the 5th edition of Bind 4.0 Demo Day. Let's get the party started. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker of Demo Day 2020, Martin Varsovsky. Over the past 30 years, Martin has founded 8 companies in the US and Europe. As founder, he's built successful companies like Jazztel, Viatel, Ya.com, Medicorp, and Eolia Renovables. He's also participated in numerous other success stories, and he's a professor at both Columbia University and New York University. Today, Martin will speak about the challenges of the new normal and the keys to collaboration between companies and startups to create a real impact in the marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Martin Varsovsky.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. As we know, in Spain, the morning lasts until 2, so it's the morning. And I will add to the introduction, it was mentioned Jazztel, Ya.com, and I felt like one of those singers who people want to hear his old songs, right? But I actually have a lot of new songs, and I'm just going to talk about the new songs of the last 5 years. So in the last 5 years, I raised over 100 million to build Prelude Fertility, which is the largest chain of fertility clinics in the US. I raised 23 million to build Overture, which is an automated embryology lab and genetic testing and embryo making, sort of like a robot that makes human embryos, which are now made by hand at embryology labs. I raised 43 million to build GoGo Network, which is plans to be one of the first companies that launches a fleet of autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles in Europe. The company is based in Germany. I raised 175 million for a VC fund and called MVB, Martin Varsovsky Bank Inter, which is invest in VCs and invest in unicorns. And I also raised a smaller fund called Varsavsky Axel Springer, together with Axel Springer. So this was just to update you on my bio, since we were talking about things that were big hits, yes, but of 20 years ago. So I feel I should share with you what I've been doing in the last 5 years. Now, how does COVID affect my situation as an entrepreneur, your situation as an entrepreneur, the whole ecosystem? And also, what is the role that corporates play in this pandemic? And how do we make the best out of a situation which is tragic to some extent? And it's a situation that has shown that has made us more humble, because here's a little piece of code, because a virus is a little piece of code, of genetic code, with an envelope, right? The SARS-CoV-2. And this little piece of code has hacked our bodies to an incredible extent, because we haven't been able yet to find a treatment or a vaccine, right? And even though things are much better in continental Europe, they're still pretty bad in the UK and in the US, right? And the UK and the US are the two countries where at least I tend to raise the most money, right? So how do we deal with these Anglo-Saxon powers, which are now so hurt by COVID? And so what I'm going to share is some maybe common sense advice of things that I've seen. At the moment, continental Europe is doing much better than the Anglo-Saxon world in terms of COVID. People are going out, they're socializing again. At our labs, people are working again. In the US, the pandemic was very well controlled in the Northeast, in New York, where it was terrible. It hit in the worst way, 8.5 million people, 21,000 dead. That is more dead than in Madrid or in London. But it's now being controlled in the Northeast, and it's now a problem of the South and the Southwest, Florida, Texas, California, Arizona. And so when you're fundraising, you kind of have to think, does it make sense to go and spend all my bullets right now to contact all the investors right now? Are investors still investing? Can I raise the kind of funds, let's say, that I was raising last year, this year? And the answer is maybe. It's sort of like deals are getting made, but less. And in my opinion, if you have a great new idea, it's not a bad time to think about it a little more and wait until you go to see those VCs or present to those VCs. Maybe wait until September or October, because now you have a combination of the summer plus the pandemic. But I am optimistic overall. I am optimistic because I've seen the way Spain went from 1,500 deaths per day, because they were 1,500, not 1,000 like the government said. It's sad that the government should lie like this. The other part of the government said that 43,000 died. So Spain went with the most deaths, but now to the least deaths, right? And that's so I blame the government for the poor functioning of the handling of the pandemic at the beginning, but I praise the government for the work that was done in the end. And now we have a better situation. Now, one idea for you entrepreneurs may be also to think of corporates, because corporates are a little less fickle than VCs. VCs are more emotional, VCs are more temperamental. VCs, you heard about herd immunity. We hope to get herd immunity at some point with a vaccine or somewhere with COVID. Well, there is also herd thinking of VCs. Like VCs tend to think many times alike. They all go one way, go another way. I shouldn't say anything against VCs because now I'm one too. Well, I mean, I've been one for a long time, investing out of my own money, but now I've raised two funds. But I don't really think like a VC. So I'm still making investments, and I'm still doing Zoom calls with investors. And it is an incredible feeling to make an investment with somebody you've never actually met in real life, that you meet over Zoom, and you gain trust over video or over Google Meet or other technologies, and you build trust, and you decide to go ahead and invest. But also myself, I'm investing less than before COVID. So my general advice is, if you have a great project, hold on to it until September. Don't start shooting your bullets now because they may not reach their targets. If you want to deal with corporates, which corporates who may be investors, corporates may also be buyers of your product, or customers, right? They may be customers or investors. Corporates are more steady. For example, in the case of the autonomous vehicle companies, we deal with a lot of corporates, and we have been able to make deals with large corporates during the pandemic. Corporates have this feeling, corporations have been around in some cases for 30 years, 50 years. They have this feeling this will pass, right? And people who work at large corporations tend to be a little less temperamental. They also tend to be, of course, less bullish when they are bullish, right? So they're less bearish now, but they're less bullish on other situations. But I've done fundraisings where I had combinations of strategics, meaning corporates, and VCs. And I think the combination of corporates and VCs sometimes works, especially when you have a product for which you need distribution, because large corporates are incredibly good many times at distribution. For example, many years ago, I built a company called Phone that I left maybe 5 years ago when I started the fertility company, and this company grew to be the largest Wi-Fi network in the world. That company grew on the back of corporates, like in the UK, it's called BT Phone, British Telecom Phone. In Germany, Deutsche Telekom Phone, it's called BT Phone, or in France, SFR Phone. So sometimes corporates are great for you to grow your business through them. And during the pandemic, I have found corporates to be ready they've embraced business meetings, they are continue to make decisions, and rightly so, because I think that what we have all found during the pandemic, as we now are doing during this conference over video, is that video works extremely well in many circumstances, and it makes you much more productive. I mean, maybe last year I would have traveled to give this conference, and I would have spent a day. Now I'm spending 15 minutes, and I go on with everything else I have to do in my life, right? And I think there's something incredibly productive about working over video. Now, the startups that are affected the most are startups that have to do with something that requires a physical presence. For example, if you're a startup that sells tickets to theater plays, well, you may be out of luck right now, because theater requires that you show up at the theater. Broadway is doing terribly, and public events are doing terribly. And so anything that requires a crowd is in bad shape now. But anything that gives you content, like Netflix is booming, Zoom is booming, like anything that gives you content is working extremely well. In fact, I have a name for this type of companies, and I call them the couch economy, la economía del sofá. And anything that you can sit in your couch and be served from your couch is thriving right now. Or maybe the law of COVID, the first law of COVID, could be that everything that can be digital becomes digital, right? So Amazon shares are at an all-time high, and anybody who works in delivering things is doing very well. Logistic companies are doing very well. So COVID does change the world. I don't think it will change the world permanently. I think a year from now, things will be back to normal. But I think during this pandemic, there's certain fine tuning that you can do in order to effectively fundraise and effectively grow your startup. So thank you very much for inviting me. And I hope you found my advice useful at the start of this event.
Martin Varsovsky, thank you so much for your tremendous insights and actionable steps. Martin Varsovsky. Now we'd like to show you the 3 corporate partners joining our roundtable today and their view on the collaboration and innovation of working with the startups in Bind 4.0 this year.
The Mercedes-Benz plant in Vitoria competes in the Champions League of automakers. The collaboration with startups supports us technological leadership in the digital automotive manufacturing world. Bind is aligned with our industry strategy. Startups add technological knowledge with the agility of motivated teams. Bind is a very dynamic program, has very solid foundations.
Coca-Cola European Partners is embarking on its digital transformation in the supply chain based on the conviction that innovation is one of the best options to guarantee the future. We committed to disruptive innovation and it has worked. Being flexible and able to adapt to a changing market is nowadays synonymous with competitiveness.
Bind 4.0 is a great opportunity to refresh our commitment with the startup model by meeting new partners and exploring new ideas with them. Our digital platform, that now is being expanded to more than 20 European factories, was created in our foods plant in Leioa and was born thanks to the great innovative environment of the Basque region that facilitate finding locally the right partnership and support for our journey. It is a great opportunity to know where you are in the digital journey and to be inspired by listening to other companies' success stories. If you have a 4.0 solution, in Bind 4.0, we will be delighted to meet you.
A great example of innovation and collaboration. But now we're going to give the word to them in the roundtable. What works and what doesn't in corporate startup collaborations. It's my pleasure to present our distinguished panelists. Aitor Urtzolai from the Basque government. The 3 industry players from Coca-Cola European Partners, Jose Maria Baldera Baldric. From Mercedes-Benz, Juan Mocoroa. From Unilever, Miquel Tejadas. And one of our successful alumni startups from last year's edition of Demo Day 2019, Darren Kelly of Open Cloud Factory. Gentlemen, I'll start with Juan. Mercedes-Benz has been one of the founding partners of the Bind 4.0 program, involved since the beginning. How important is it, Juan, to have an adequate framework from the outset of the collaboration with the startups?
Hello, Jack. Good morning and all. It is a pleasure to be here with you. Yes, also this is, in my opinion, in our opinion, as Mercedes-Benz plant, it's very important to have an adequate framework. For the digital transformation, for the improve or the technological leadership. This is one of our main activity in this factory, to improve our technological leadership. And the startups has place on it. This is what we are working in the last years. We identify 3 key factors to success in this digitalization strategy in which the startups has also a place on it. I will describe these three key factors. The first one is the human factor, the talent management. Before you want to improve a technical transformation, a digital transformation, you must improve a human transformation. In this area, the startups added technological knowledge with the agility of motivated teams in a way that are completely aligned with the human transformation that we want to increase. The second success factor is the innovation method. The innovation method should be co-creative, should be agile, should be dynamic. Working with startups facilitates the generation of disruptive ideas. They are free from the weight of a large organization, and the agility that provides the startup are very combined in this innovation method. The third factor is a smart integration of the technologies issues, the new technologies ideas. We should be aware of the risk to investing efforts in a non-core process. Today, we can digitalize everything. The problem is, and the question is, give me as company improve added value in my core business. This is the main question. And the combining from the two knowledge, the knowledge that we have as company from our core business and the knowledge of the startups, they provide the specific technological knowledge of this technological idea. This combination should work in the proper direction to make a smart integration. These three success factors are part of our framework, and the startups have a very good place on it.
To get to these three successes, Juan, do you think that it's important that the startup collaboration be a strategy defined at the beginning at the management level?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
How so? Briefly, what steps do you take at the management level at the beginning of a collaboration with each startup?
At the beginning of the collaboration, we define some challenge. A startup should help us to resolve a problem. A performance that we are looking for. Normally, a startup doesn't have this point of view, and we should, at the beginning, as company, to describe which are our goals to improve our main processes, and then discussing with the startup, looking for the proper project.
Thank you, Juan. Mikel, Unilever. How can large companies like Unilever boost the internal commitment with the employees and the managers to implement these new technologies that startups can provide?
Well, in our case, I think our employees play with a little bit of an edge because the beginning of our digital journey actually started through an interaction with a startup. Yeah, so back in 2015, we built, Odeya Solutions, which was a startup from Basque Country, built this digital platform for us. And the whole idea was to have all things digital that would happen within our factory in one platform. And that platform had the aim to be accessible for everybody. So our digital journey was not so much about creating some very sophisticated and very top level things for engineers, but really something that would democratize access to digital tools for everyone. At different levels, of course, with different levels of sophistication, but that was the whole idea, right? So in a way, the way that we have managed to get everybody to embrace it is on the one side by giving everybody access to this platform. And that means that they can both contribute to the platform by adding data, by contributing with their own inputs, but also by consuming information, consuming the outputs of what they get from the platform. Okay. When we come to the integration of startups, you have to imagine that in our ecosystem, what you have is you have this platform, and what we try to do is each startups becomes like a feature of that platform. We always try to integrate that. Nothing stays alone. I mean, there are no islands of, oh, this startup is helping us doing this specific thing that is disconnected from the platform. No, everything lands in the same place. And if you think of how you're using your mobile phone, in the end, your mobile phone is a platform, Android, iOS, whatever you're using. And then within that platform, you are using a lot of different apps, a lot of different features. And in our case, our platform is the place where we put the work of each one of the startups we collaborate with as apps, as features, that actually, as Juan was saying, have the aim to solve a problem. So we're not just putting them there because they're very cool, but really because they deliver value for us. And I'm saying this because the best way for people in our company to embrace the new technologies is when they see that this technology is solving the problem. So in a way, what we do is we announce the new features that will come in the next upgrade, because we're going to integrate the work of this startup or the other startup, and this feature is going to solve this specific problem. So we're creating a sense of, like, when you download this upgrade in your phone and you're saying like, oh, let's see what what new features pop up, and that is the way that we really have gotten a massive success in terms of embracing the technology. And as it was said in the video, I mean, we started small and then we grew, and now we are deploying this same platform, the same strategy across 20 factories.
Would you say, Mikel, that there's a magic formula for approaching a challenge like this, starting up with a startup? Or do you have a recommendation in this area?
Well, I mean, magic formulas probably. Well, I don't have one. Yeah. What I think is it has to be very open interaction and open in terms of from both sides. Yeah. So we have been working in our platform. I mean, we started back in 2015, and I think we have been in beta mode since then. And in a corporate environment, in big companies like the ones that are represented here today, people are not used to working with software that is not fully finished, things that don't work perfectly. So you have to really educate your people to work in a beta mode so that you give your startups also the opportunity to really adapt and change and adjust the product to the specific needs. Yeah? So I think this is probably one of the big challenges to get in a corporate environment, people to accept that you might not come with a finished product, but this is work in progress that never ends. Yeah? So it will never end, because that would mean that you stop innovating. Yeah?
Thank you. Jose Maria, Coca-Cola European Partners has joined the program this year in the 4th edition for the first time. How was this first experience?
I have to say that it's been very, very positive. Yeah, so we've had the chance, to meet, to find a wide range of startups in this program, with lots of applications, that we're covering. Yeah, so the end-to-end supply chain scope. Yeah, and we found, so many different opportunities that we cannot even think about. Yeah. And in fact, so what we see is that this is a key input, for the digital transformation program that we have across CCEP. Okay, so there's a good match, to the program, that we started, in CCEP a number of years ago. Okay.
Good. So
one thing I have to say.
Please continue. Go ahead. Continue.
One thing that I have, one thing that I have to say, in terms of the dynamics, we have had also, to learn, during the process, So at the beginning, we found, so there's timing challenges, so you know that in big companies, the time pace, for big companies to take decisions, especially when we talk about innovation and startups, it's not as fast, as we would like it to be sometimes, right? And it's really key, for both parties, for the big corporations, for the startups, to really come prepared, for all these meetings, these interactions, with all the elements that have to be decided. Okay. In any case, it's been a great opportunity, for us, to become more agile and to learn, definitely from the startups.
Good. So what's your view of the interaction and the dynamics with the startups that's proposed at the outset of the corporate involvement?
Yeah, so in line with what I was saying, yeah, so I think that the dynamics has been very agile, really fast, and we had this challenge that I mentioned, yeah, especially at the beginning, okay, yeah, where we had, yeah, to make sure that we were really prepared, yeah, as a big corporation, yeah, with all the end-to-end functions represented, yeah, to be able, yeah, to understand and capture, yeah, so the value, yeah, of the different proposals, yeah, that we were seeing at the beginning. Okay, but apart from that, yeah, so we've learned, yeah, also, yeah, about the process, yeah, it's been really, really positive for us.
Good, thank you. Aitor, Basque government, how can the collaboration between the startups and the corporates be promoted and accelerated from the public administration side?
Well, I consider that as a public administration, we have very clear that the main actors are the companies. In this case, the corporates on the one hand and the startups on the other hand. Our role in the development of open innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystems is to be facilitators and to somehow design and establish some kinds of platforms or spaces or let's say conditions where different actors are able to connect and to take advantage of their synergies. And to do so, in the case of BIND 4.0, since its launch in 2016, we have had, I would say, three main objectives. On the one hand, the first objective has been to foster open innovation among our partner companies, to enhance their digital transformation through the collaboration with the startups, in order to improve their own companies in the way to be more competitive. On the other hand, as the second goal is, of course, to accelerate the growth of startups. In this case, we are talking about the startups from all over the world. How? Offering them the opportunity to develop a real project or to sign a real contract with one or more big corporates located or based here in the Basque Country. And finally, the third objective is to attract talent, the talent attraction. In this case, we are attracting talent in form of startups that will enable surely to enrich the Basque industrial and technological ecosystem. And actually, I consider that BIND 4.0 is working pretty successfully in this way. And if we have a look to the data, we can see that the number of startups applications has been more than 1,700 from more than 80 different countries all over the world, or the number of big partner corporates is also growing every year and currently are more than 50, almost 60 super companies partnering with BIND 4.0, or the accelerated startups to date have been more than 100. Finally, we can say also that the jointly developed projects, or which is the same, the contracts signed by corporates and startups have already been more than 170.
Good. So the role of the government in this equation, in this dynamic, how do you see the role specifically of the government in this relationship, in this equation?
Well, as I said before, I think that our role is clearly to be facilitators and to try the connections between large corporations and startups, because what we are seeing is that there are mutual benefits, and all of the actors, the main actors in this case, have benefits in terms of, on the one hand, the big corporates are able to access to the talent, to the technology, to the knowledge of the startups, and on the other hand, the startups are able to have contracts with big corporates and are also being able to have good references to open new commercial doors in the future.
Great. Thank you, Aitor. Darrig, from the point of view of a startup alumni, last year's alumni, what do you consider to be the main value of Bind 4.0?
Thanks, Jack. I guess Open Cloud Factory, being a startup, we're very much a pragmatic company. So, I sort of see your question from a pragmatic standpoint of view, more than a philosophical point of view. So the value I see from Bind 4.0 is it generates real business. The fact that there are contracts, there's money on the table, for me, that totally changes the dynamics. It totally changes the dynamics from both sides of the story. So when there's a contract in place, the companies, the corporates, this is our perception at least, that they take it a lot more seriously. Okay, so they start looking for a return, which makes sense on their investment. And to do this, they need to clearly define the problems that they are facing if they want to create subjective value. And this is something that both Mikkel and Juan have mentioned earlier on. And from a startup's point of view, we've signed a contract, there's money on the table, so that creates commitment from our end as well. That creates a huge amount of positive pressure. Bind also being there, the government being there, creates a huge amount of commitment from our end. So I think that's also a positive. And from that sort of real business entrepreneurial standpoint, I think the fact that Bind for me has been great in setting really aggressive timelines. I know that can be difficult for corporates, and I know that can be difficult for us, the startups, but if we really want to get into this, if we really want to get it right, this is what we need to do. And that's business, and that's business today. And forcing all of the timelines, when we needed to get our pitch, when we needed to get the contract signed, when we needed to give a presentation, these aggressive timelines, I think, is very much embedded in that entrepreneurial getting things done and having a real business approach. So for us, the top line here would be real business. Bind creates real business.
Wow. Bind creates real business, a senior partner kind of thing. Great. Okay, now I have the same question for four of you, the corporates and the startup. What recommendations could you give to startups when the time comes to sell their solutions to a big company? Let's start with you, Juan. What recommendations would you give a startup when it's time to hit the marketplace?
Okay, I will choose three recommendations. The first one is the startup should make the proposal, the technical proposal, in a way that it must identify a specific added value. The proposal is as good as the problem it solves. The focus must be in the use case, not only in the technical, in the technology. This is one of the main problems that we saw in the past with some startups. The second one is around the process that every company has in the purchase validation process from a provider. We know that it's not has regular demanding process, but the startups need a minimum of requirements. It's always helps that the startup explain how many muscle it have, how many people are there, which about the technical knowledge, nobody has questions. Normally, this topic is not a problem, but the other aspects, the financial aspect, the staff aspect, this is important to speak of the first time. And the second, the third recommendation will be make short-term proposal, a proof of concept. This limits the risk approach and make also a very good first step in order to validate the team and the technical proposal. And after that, can be a bigger project coming.
Great, thank you. Mikel, Unilever's point of view, your point of view, what recommendations would you give to startups when it's time to walk in the door and sell?
Well, the first one would be an amazing listener, yeah, because you know, every father, every mother loves their children more than anything else, and very often we're so very much in love with the product that we're not even listening to what the problem that the other side has is. So, and I think listening and understanding very well how your solution really solves a real problem, and how you have to tweak, you know, your product, how you have to maybe eventually even, you know, completely change it, or create a new stream of revenue, you know, for your startup by solving a different problem. That I think is one of the main things that I think they have to think about. The second one, and I think that's one of the main barriers if you want to enter a big company, is your scalability. Yeah, so very often within a company like Unilever, you will get questions like, yeah, but does this startup have the scalability? I mean, can they tomorrow implement this very same solution that they've implemented in one factory in 300 factories across the world? And a factory in Philippines, a factory in Tanzania, a factory in South America. I mean, do they have the scalability? Yeah? So how many frictions are we going to find along the way? Apart from obviously the validation processes. So it's not the same to work for a small family business around the corner than to really move to a worldwide company. And the last point I would say is, think of us not only as the driver of your growth, but think of us as a massive platform and opportunity to validate your product, to see what works, what doesn't work, and to co-develop it with us. Yeah? So I think don't only come with the concern of are they going to buy the product or are they not, but really how can we really find that space where you take me a little bit to the startup space and I take you a little bit to the corporate space, and together we grow. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you. Jose Maria, Coca-Cola, what recommendations would you give to startups when it's time to walk in those doors to big companies?
Okay, so definitely, yeah, for a large corporation, yeah, so we have a lot of partners, yeah, and what we really value is, yeah, for you, yeah, to try to build trust from the very beginning. Yeah, it's not easy, but at least we try to give, yeah, 2 tips, yeah. So the first one in line, yeah, with what Juan and Mikel have said, is try to focus on value, okay? Which is the value that this will deliver, yeah, to the company. How we can unlock value, make it scalable, okay? Do not focus in the beginning, yeah, on the gadget, on the features, on the technology, okay? But on the ability, yeah, to unlock value for the company, okay? Maybe the second bit would be, yeah, so we know it's going to be, yeah, so a complex project, okay, with a lot of challenges on the way, okay? And what we would like you to is to try to anticipate as much as possible the challenges that we may be facing together, okay? And also be transparent from the beginning, okay? For example, these are the issues that we've seen at this point in time with other companies, and this is the way that we have found, yeah, to solve them, for example. Okay, but be open and transparent from the beginning, also to build this trust, yeah. And maybe the last one, yeah, it's, yeah, so what Juan have just said, yeah, to start small, okay. It has to be scalable at some point in time, but yeah, we have to start small to make sure it works, okay. Maybe with a proof of concept, yeah, before going too big, okay.
Good.
But these are the 3 things I would say.
Great, thank you. And now, Darag, a startup. Been there now. You've been a year into the Bind program, and you're out in the marketplace too. What recommendations do you, as a startup, give to other startups when they walk in the door at a big company?
Okay, so in theory, I should be aligned with the big corporates here if I've learned something in Bind 4.0, and I think I am. So the question is, how do you sell a solution to a big corporate? So I think, you know, you have to focus on solution. You know, what is a solution? You know, a solution is something that resolves a problem, and I think that goes into what Jesus Maria said about the value. That's where value is created. Value is created when you solve a problem. It's completely subjective to the company. And for you to be able to solve the problem, you need to understand the problem. And this goes back to what Mikkel said about, being a listener, deeply understanding what the problems are that the companies are facing, and get outside of your comfort zone. Startups were very competent in what we do and how we do it, but that's not where the value is. The value is, how are we going to resolve a problem with what we've got? So we need to be able to listen a lot to the stakeholders within a company, and we need to be able to articulate how we resolve that problem, articulate that very well. And working with large corporates, there's a challenge here in that there are multiple stakeholders. Okay, so you're not just going to talk with Mikkel, or you're not just going to talk with Juan from Mercedes. You have to map out in an organization who are the other stakeholders, and you have to understand what are their specific problems. And they might not be problems that are technological. They could be other issues. They could be cultural issues, but you have to take them into consideration when you're addressing the global problem. And I guess sort of one tip, I guess, that Open Cloud Factory could share with other startups that we've learned along the way is, most big corporations have macro projects. There's always something big happening, and Mikkel mentioned about the big digital platform, or there's always something big happening. And from a startup's point of view, you should try to look at ways of how can you get involved in that macro project. How can you sort of position your solution that it creates value with something that is already being proposed? Because when you've got a macro project, you've got all of the necessities to create business. You've got a leadership, you've got a leader, you've got a team, you've got a budget, you've got a timeline. So that's a sort of a quick tip that we would give, but you can't avoid the hard work of sitting down, listening to people, getting outside of your comfort zone, and being able to internalize that and articulate it back to the customer.
Good stuff, Darag. I'm not going to let you go because we have a question from the audience, and it's directed to you. Michael from the UK, London, in fact, to Darag. Besides the achieved projects, the program also offers a set of interesting support services. What are they? And a second question to that is, what was your experience with them? How did you see it?
Okay, thanks, Michael. Yeah, great question. So there's lots of service. I can go through a few of them, but I think one sort of overarching point that we found with Bind was that Bind didn't just put you in contact with companies, it put you in contact with the Basque ecosystem, the Basque industrial ecosystem. So that's both at a public and a private sector level. So that's phenomenal. If you really get involved and you invest from a startup's point of view, Bind will really support you, and they'll help you open doors and in lots of different ways. So that's sort of an intangible that we saw, that it's not written down anywhere, but it's something that happened along the way. And then regards to sort of tangibles, services, Michael, there were lots of networking sessions. Okay, these are sort of customer site sessions where we would go on site with Mercedes, for example, and there were great opportunities to do these listening sessions that Mikkel talked about. Great opportunities to understand what are these guys, what are their challenges, what is their day to day. We had coaching sessions where everything was covered, from how could you improve your positioning from a startup point of view, your messaging from a startup point of view, all the way to investment. So really excellent coaching sessions that, some of them, depending on the maturity of the startup, are more applicable or less applicable, but we found them extremely valuable. And there was also open sessions that, in the case of Open Cloud Factory, responding to your second question, Jack, what did we particularly find useful? And it was to actually get out in these open sessions and start to pitch to customers, to start to pitch to to local corporates that Bind had established these sessions. So in these pitching sessions, we were refining our messaging. Okay, so we were going out to doing our networking sessions, going to Mercedes, internalizing those problems, and then we had the opportunity to go out and articulate our solving of those problems, to validate it. So I think there's a lot of tangibles, and there's also the mentoring as well. Those are the tangibles, and there's also the intangibles. If you're really committed to Bind, the Bind team will really back you up in lots of ways that it's not written down anywhere. But our experience has been, we've been in contact with the Bass Cybersecurity Center. We were in RSA in California with them, and it's opened a lot of doors for us. So there's a lot of tangibles that are written down that are very valuable, but there's a lot of intangibles. If you are willing to commit, Bind will also back you up on that.
Great, thank you. If you're willing to commit, you got the value there. Thank you, Darek. We have another question from Juan in Madrid to Miquel Tejadas. What are the main features that Unilever is looking for from startups?
Well, probably it's difficult to narrow it down to just a few. Yeah? So at the moment, when we started the journey, we were just interested in getting data, getting quality data, different sources, and really getting everything in one place. At this moment, we are more focusing on the optimization of the use of all this data. So the type of features that we're looking into more intensively right now probably have to do with anything that allows us to eliminate non-value-added activities that mostly are in the realm of processes where we have a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of gatekeeping activities, and so on. But at the same time that I'm saying this, I mean, and these would be in the realm of algorithmic tools and so on. But we are also putting in place tools for analysis of ergonomy, movements, use of PPs, using artificial intelligence by the use of cameras. We are very open because the platform is really like not just narrowed down to one thing. And the good thing about expanding it to more factories means that we also have more places where we can try new things. Yeah. So in the past we were constrained somehow to one or two factories where we could do the trials. Now we have many factories. So what we're doing is specialized factories in different sets of tools. So that gives us the opportunity to not think sequentially as in the pre-digital world, but really like simultaneously develop things because we can leverage the available resources that we have in such factories. So I don't know if I answered the question because I was a bit vague. We are really touching many different areas right now. Yeah? So narrowing it down to just one or two would be just closing opportunities. Yeah?
Well, thank you. I think you did answer the question. It was a broad one, but you dug down on a few good points. Thank you. And here's one for Aitor, and it's going to be our last question. Aitor, what are the three main attributes that the Basque Country has as an advanced entrepreneurship hub? What's the competitive advantage, I guess?
Okay, if I had to highlight three things about the Basque Country as an entrepreneurial hub, I would remark the following ones. First, in the Basque Country, we have a great quantity and also a great quality of, I would say, very interesting industrial startups with a growing number of cases that are succeeding internationally. So I would say that we have an ecosystem that is, let's say, increasingly dynamic. Secondly, we have a very important industrial sector. We do have a very important industrial sector here in the Basque Country with best-in-class and leading companies, as we can see in this panel, that are clearly more and more aware, as you can see, about the importance of collaborating with startups in order to improve their own companies. And third, in the Basque Country, we have as it has been mentioned, we have a public-private collaboration culture that makes it possible and also makes it easier to have some very interesting financial instruments and also support services that are focused on developing and accelerating the most innovative projects.
Great. Thank you, Aitor, and thank you all 5 of you, gentlemen, for your deep insights. Thanks so much. And now we have another example of successful collaboration between corporates and Bind startups.
Startups give you the chance to try something out very quickly. The key advantages of Bind 4.0 are effectiveness and flexibility. Normally, one spends a lot of money and time for a scouting process, and this is very agile and focused. They take your needs and go around the world to look for startups with solutions for you. Bind team are very organized, all is very structured, and at the same time, they're very flexible and supportive. You always get a response from them very fast. Bind 4.0 makes network with other companies and more startups very easy. I definitely encourage to join the demo day because it gives you a grasp of the type of projects that could be feasible for your company.
And so now, Lagunok, amigos, friends, we'd like to take you for a tour of the virtual expo area. Here's how you get to know each of the startups that have taken part in this 4th edition of Bind 4.0. As you know, this year we're not going to have a physical exhibitors area for visiting the startup stands over a few hours. What we have are virtual stands that we can visit throughout the year ahead. In this year's edition, rather than have corridors segmenting the startups, we'll find the startups' corresponding projects by filtering them by various categories. Here, for each startup, we'll have a 5-minute video of their pitch, of their project, of their solution, along with a 1-minute presentation of their corporate partner. These pitches can be shared over social media or by email. You can also contact each startup that might interest you right here on the platform. One of the benefits of this format is that you can start a discussion and schedule appointments with any of the Bind 4.0 startups. And something new to this edition as well, we'd be delighted if you voted for what you feel is the best pitch or the best pitches presented in this edition of Bind 4.0. We invite you to vote for as many projects as you like. You can vote for more than one startup, even though you'll be able to give only one vote to each of them. In other words, if you like 5 projects, you can vote once each for each of those 5. We encourage you to get your colleagues involved too. They can visit the expo area over the next year, but the voting will only be open through next Friday, the 10th of July. It's open to anyone who enters the platform and visits the expo area. Next Friday, 10th of July, we'll communicate the results of the voting. So there you have Bind 4.0 Demo Day, the 4th edition, 2020. We're already looking forward to the 5th edition, 2021. And here to present the 5th edition of Bind 4.0 is Arantxa Tapia, Minister of Economic Development and Infrastructure in the Basque government. Arantxa.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I will try to talk to you about this program. You have been about 1 hour talking about Bind 4.0. And in our case, from the government point of view, we try to have an open innovation platform that is consolidated during the last 4 editions. And we try to generate added value, both for new startups and for our corporates. So in this case, we are trying to introduce the 5th edition, and we have to analyze which are the offer for the startups. And as you have seen, you have mentoring, of course, networking, training, the alumni service, mentoring, a place to work, access to different funding and different grants, and of course all the venture club and the opportunity to continue working in this sense. Which is the main and the differential value in this program? I think that the main issue is that we try to connect corporates that are located here in the Basque Country, big corporates that are international. Some of them are international and you will know them. And some of them are Basque companies, but are internationally located in several places. So there's an opportunity to work with them and to introduce all the innovations of the startups in these new corporates, in these new companies that are trying to innovate in processes and in new technologies. So considering that, let me say in these 4 editions, we have had more than 1,700 applications. We have been working with 55 partner companies, with 55 big companies, corporates. We have selected about 100 startups to work with 55 companies. And we have developed 170 new projects related to 4.0 industries. You will see that there are different industries in these 4.0 companies, and real turnover for the startups has been about 4.5 million euros. So some of the companies that have been working, they have improved, they have been working with corporates, and now they are prepared to continue working in the world. And this 5th edition, we have 6 new companies, 6 new corporates that have been joining us, which are Enagas, Erart, GH Cranes, Ingeteam, Tubos Reunidos, and Vidrala, which are 6 new companies, big corporates, very, very good, well located here in the Basque Country, but that are working all over the world in different areas. So together with these companies, we have the old corporates, and some of them have left the program, but nowadays we have 57 corporates that will be working with you, with the new applicants, and with the new selected companies, with the new selected startups in this 5th edition. These are the corporates that you will be able to work with. And finally, let me say which are the main say characteristics of the program. Startups can come from anywhere of the world. They have to be tech companies, so they have to be very on the top, on the high-level technologies. They have to work in solutions applied to advanced manufacturing, energy, health tech, and food tech. So 4 areas for these new startups, very technological startups that have to adopt new solutions and that have to work with corporates trying to introduce these new technologies in the corporates. So this is the 5th edition, and the calling is starting today till the 11th of September. And I hope that we will have a lot of new startups coming to the Basque Country. And we want you to be here with us, and working with our corporates, with our companies, and trying to introduce new technologies on our industry. So thank you very much. And we are hoping to see you here from September and in the next years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arantxa Tapia. Thank you. And the last word this year we're going to give to the startups so that you can feel the energy of the collaboration with Bind 4.0.
Bind 4.0 provides access to first-class participants,
access to a new market, access to really first-class and international clients.
Bind 4.0 is the best accelerating platform you will find in the Basque Country.
Bind is acceleration.
It's a shortcut to success.
Builder of great partnerships.
Innovation network.
Great companies, great mentors, and great advisors.
Última tecnología, coste y agilidad.
The knowledge of the most innovative application in the field of the industry.
I think it's the best way to both join traditional companies and startups in real projects.
The global acceleration program that any startup needs.
We encourage you to apply to the next edition of Bind
and boost your startup to the next level.
Take advantage of the training sessions, be persistent and enjoy the experience.
Valor, ánimo y a por todas.
Te estamos esperando en la quinta edición que nos aportes tu innovación.
Join Bind and show us your technologies.
And be protagonist of digital future.
You should apply now.
There you have it. Thank you so much for joining us this year. And we look forward to you joining us again next year for the 5th edition of Bind 4.0 Demo Day.